And welcome. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the possibility, just the possibility, of RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. RFK Jr. versus Donald Trump. There's been a lot of things that have been happening since RFK Jr. announced that he was going to run for president. Since then, as we know, Joe Biden has said that he is not, or the DNC, the Democratic Party, basically has said that they are not interested in having a debate on the Democrat side. Donald Trump has said the same thing basically on the Republican side. Now, with Ron DeSantis running against Donald Trump, it's going to be hard for Trump to keep that up, especially if Ron DeSantis's numbers keep growing. I haven't really seen that on that side, but on the Democrat side, we have seen that RFK Jr.'s numbers are growing. I believe when he first started running, even before, it was his poll numbers, if you believe in the poll numbers, were at about 13 to 14%. Now, RFK Jr. is at about 20, and you can see Biden's numbers slowly getting lower as RFK Jr. numbers increase. And I believe that's only going to keep happening. RFK Jr.'s numbers can only get better, even with the censorship and everything like that, because almost out of nowhere came Twitter. And all of a sudden now Twitter is a big player and is going to be a very big player in the 2024 presidential elections. In the general election, but in the primaries too. Now, I'm still a little bit more focused and more concerned about the primaries because I believe if you can get Joe Biden out of the picture in the primaries, I'd be able to breathe a little bit of sigh and would have a little less worry about the possibility of fraud, because we've already seen election interference that is happening, that is going to continue to happen. It always happens. Election fraud always happens. To what degree does election fraud happen? To what degree does election interference happen? I think we're going to be able to see all of that play out. The interference seems to be very, very wild right now with everything. But what I've been doing is I've just been using I always love to do the handwritten notes and handwritten. So I'm actually working on this book. With the convenient title here, Trump versus Kennedy, the results of toxic politics, or Trump versus Kennedy, a hope for a healthy debate. I don't know. I haven't really finalized the subtitle of it, but the title there is pretty much, and I've gone back and forth, RFK versus Trump, Trump versus RFK, however you want to say it. There's an interesting question I'd like to pose to everybody here too. Taking Kennedy out of it for a minute, looking at just the Republican side, which to me is still kind of baffling why Ron DeSantis is running right now at this time. Let's just say, and I don't believe this will happen, but let's just say that Ron DeSantis wins the primary. He wins the Republican primary. He could then, in theory, and this is a very wild theory, but he could then, in theory, make President Trump the vice president, which would put President Trump as the head of the Senate. And then in 4 years from now, Trump could still run again. it's, I mean, a lot of this is way out there, maybe. It's fun to think about. It looks like it's fun to think about what would happen if we actually had RFK Jr. versus Donald Trump. And I think it would be very good for this nation, very good for the world, very good for a lot of the crazy stuff that we see happening along our borders. This trans stuff, the pubic blockers, the killing babies, 6, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months leading up to when the baby is born. In some cases, even after the baby is born. It's just craziness to me. So you're seeing a lot of these things, a lot of this crazy stuff. And so I've been doing a lot of research and just kind of looking at a lot of the things that are similar. What is similar between RFK Jr. and Donald Trump? What are the differences? So I'm looking at all of those things here. And if you do want to follow Kennedy, You can always go. Let me see if this will work here. If I share this, you can always go to Kennedy24.com. Now you can also find Kennedy in several places. Twitter is where I've been following him. I guess he's on. I don't know if he was on TikTok. I was watching a lot of his past videos. One video said that he was actually banned from TikTok, which I've never heard of. I've never heard of anybody being banned from TikTok. But the best place that I've found to follow Kennedy is on Twitter, and I've never been a big Twitter guy, but um, after everything that has happened, it's crazy how Twitter is now the least censored place for these presidential candidates is what it seems like to me. But this is a great place to go, and just if you want to keep up with what RFK Jr. is doing, what his stances are, I'll tell you there are some stances that I do not agree with him on, but I'm very curious to see where all of this goes. And he is the only guy who can beat Biden. Getting Biden out of the way, taking Biden out of the primaries, I think would be a very, very big deal. Now, that's just my thoughts, my views on it. But so this is Kennedy. This is the website here. If you do want to follow him and kind of see what is going on with his campaign, should be an interesting campaign at the very least. One can hope, right? So it's Kennedy24.com. That's if you want to stay up to date with what Kennedy is doing. Now, if you want to stay up to date with what Donald Trump is doing, you can always go to donaldjtrump.com. And that is the best way to stay up to date with what Donald Trump is doing here. So you'll find everything that you pretty much need right there. I don't know why it took me here, but so that's what I would do. So let's see, donaldjtrump.com. Yeah, it takes me here to this place. But um, so those are some of the places that you can find if you want to keep up with these two candidates, which I think are the two best candidates in 2024. It will really upset the NWO and their plans and everything. We may have a chance to actually push them back, hold them back for a little while we still can. But I'm really looking forward to everything that is happening here. So I'm just going to put in on Trump.com, and I think it's rally. So. It's weird that it's redirecting me back to this other site here. So that was pretty odd. Okay. Anyways, I'll just go through one of these videos here, play one of these videos that I found. Got a whole bunch of playlists, but this one here is maybe a 2 minute, maybe a 2 minute video here. And let me just I'm gonna mute that for a second. Go here. Do you want to get to it? All right. This one is a very interesting video because it's also very interesting that we have seen um, we've seen Trump. Or sorry, we've seen RFK Jr. talk a lot about Donald Trump, but we haven't really seen Trump talk a lot about RFK. I find that pretty interesting myself. So I wonder how you all feel about that. Anyways, this is a 2 minute clip here. So I'm going to go ahead and just play this quickly.
Well, I think the problem is, number one, he's a bully. And, I don't like bullies. And I don't think America, that's part of America's tradition. I think in many ways he's discredited the American experiment with self-governance. Well, I don't think we should ban billionaires. I think, that's not the way to go about it. We had a 50-year part of our history, which is called the Great Prosperity, when we developed the American middle class, which was the driver of the world economy. It was the driver of our economy. It created happiness and quality of life in our country. And during most of that period, there was a 91% tax on the upper echelon. Right. Well, I haven't made any endorsement. So I'm just kind of I'm watching the debates. I'm watching what's happening to the primaries. My kids are working for Mayor Pete. My cousin Joe is working for Elizabeth Warren. There are a number of other members of my family who are working for Joe Biden. We have relationships with, very strong relationships with most of the candidates. And I kind of go back and forth. I hear them debate. I love Tulsi Gabbard when she talks about our foreign policy. I think, I'm most closely aligned with her vision for foreign policy than any of the other ones. They're all pretty good on the environment.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest?
So I guess one thing I should have probably said is that clip was actually from the 2020 presidential election. That was about 3 years ago, dated January 16, 2020. So that was a very interesting year, I'm sure, as you all know, everything that was happening. And this is before the COVID, really became a big issue, a big deal. So it's interesting to hear Kennedy's views at that time, and then to go back and then see what he would say later on as well. So there's another good clip here. There's a lot of these good clips, and I need to break a lot of this up, which some people have done, but there is a lot of good, interesting short clips here. Here is another one. And
President Biden at some point.
I'm just going to play this. Hopefully it's not coming in too loud. This one is just about 54 seconds.
President Biden at some point is going to have to debate President Trump, who's the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. President Trump has shown himself to be the most devastating debater, probably since Abraham Lincoln, in terms of just his capacity to obliterate and dispatch opponents. And President Biden really needs to be on his toes in doing that. And, asking him to not train for that. President Trump is going to have to go through a series of debates in his own political party, presumably. And to have President Biden not going through his own debate process and getting in shape for that is like asking a prize fighter to train for a championship fight by sitting on a couch and eating Chick-fil-A. He should be out there showing what he can do.
You see this little device right here?
One there. So
well, I'm going to show you something right now.
That was a good little clip there. Let's see. There was another one. We have some of these old Robert F. Kennedy. I was looking back also at some of these. There's some really good Trump clips here. But let's see. There's a bias one. Oh, this is an interesting one. This one may have gotten Hillary.
That's been the pattern for quite some time.
And I couldn't find a good quality video of this. This is from 15 years ago. The remark is very interesting. So this is from May 23rd, 2008. 2008. So keep that in mind here as we listen to what Hillary has to say.
That's been the pattern for quite some time now. And honestly, I just believe that this is the most important job in the world. It's the toughest job in the world. You should be willing to campaign for every vote. You should be willing to debate anytime, anywhere. I think it's an interesting juxtaposition where we find ourselves. And, I have been willing to do all of that during the entire process. And people have been trying to push me out of this ever since Iowa. And
Why?
I find that, I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. I find it curious because it is unprecedented in history. I don't understand it. And between my opponent and his camp and some in the media, there has been this urgency to end this. And, historically, that makes no sense. So I find it a bit of a mystery.
You don't buy the party unity argument?
I don't, because, again, I've been around long enough. My husband did not wrap up the nomination in 1992 until he won the California primary somewhere in the middle of June. Right? We all remember Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June in California. I don't understand it. And, there's lots of speculation about why it is, but.
What's your speculation?
I don't know. I find it curious.
She doesn't know. She doesn't know. She doesn't really know that much. And that's, it's not surprising. Not surprising there. But, she thought people need to be able to debate. And they should be open to that, and it should happen. So we'll see if it happens here with RFK Jr. and Joe Biden. My guess is no, it will not happen. I'm sure many of you probably feel the same way. But how many people really even know, first of all, that RFK Jr. is running? How many people know that Ron DeSantis is running? And I think, it's kind of like, well, we know Biden is there. I'm actually shocked Biden is running. He's running for re-election. We know Trump is there. We know Ron DeSantis is also there. But then we have RFK Jr., to me, who just came out of nowhere. RKO out of nowhere. RFK out of nowhere, pretty much. And it's really... it's become very entertaining. I find it very entertaining at the very least. I remember I am a Christian, so I don't put any hope into man. I put it all into Jesus Christ. But I do find a lot of the politics, and I find God pushing me to look at these things, to look at Donald Trump. And I go back, and I'm having a whole video, 3-hour video on my other channel, Greg Fernandez Jr. channel, where it really goes back and looks at everything that led up, not everything, but a lot of stuff that led up to Donald Trump winning. I've been following Donald Trump's path here since he announced that he was running, and I did end up voting for Donald Trump in 2016, and pretty much had watched all of his speeches, all of his debates from the time that he became the president. But even before then, I was watching any of the press conferences that he would do, especially after COVID. I tried to watch all of those, tried to stream them all, tried to back them up, to actually document them, and just to kind of follow and see exactly, okay, I voted for this guy. Now, what is he going to do? How is he going to follow through on all these things that he says that he's going to do? And he actually exceeded my expectations. My expectations were kind of low. I didn't really know what to expect. I'd kind of given up on the whole political process. Of course, I didn't really understand it that well either, how complicated the whole thing is, but how important it is, and why they want to make us seem like it is not important. There are some very powerful people out there who want us to not pay attention to it, to not even get involved in it. And it makes it a lot easier for them to navigate the country to where they want the country to go if people are not paying attention, people are not getting involved in it. So they want to make it hard. They want to make it difficult. And now we actually have a pretty good chance of getting a fair debate from both sides, from two guys who are really not a part of the two-party system, the way that I see it. I don't see Trump as a Republican, the same way as I don't see RFK Jr. as a Democrat. RFK Jr. is what they call a Kennedy Democrat, which is very, very different than the Democrat Party that we see now. I was a part of the Democrat Party up until basically George Bush. After George Bush Jr. came in, and we saw the wars and all that, and once I realized more things about 911, that really changed my view. And then here comes Ron Paul. Ron Paul comes out of nowhere, and he starts saying a lot of good things that people want to hear, people need to hear. And it's interesting that Ron Paul, Donald Trump, and RFK Jr. all resonate with the Libertarian Party. All of them, in some way, in some form, they really do. Their views are very much to the center, and where I see the Libertarians is kind of in the middle of the Republicans and the Democrat Party. But I do not and will not think that RFK Jr. is today's Democrat. He is almost the anti-Democrat to what they have put out there. When you think about Biden, and you ask RFK Jr. about this, and you will hear, if you listen to his speeches, if you listen to what he is saying, just in these last couple months, I mean, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. That's another clip that I want to play too, with him at the actual border, standing out there with his cell phone at the border, reporting live from the border. And in 1-2 minutes, remember, RFK Jr. is a lawyer too. He's a big stats guy too. But in 1 or 2 minutes, RFK Jr. really breaks down what is happening at the border and shows it as these people are being led across the border. And at the same time, the same people that are letting these people across the border and then just letting them in, basically, don't know who these people are, where they came from, who's being trafficked, who's not being trafficked. They love, the media loves to show you photos of these kids. They don't know if those kids are really, if they belong to the people that are bringing these children into this country. They have no idea. And it's really, really crazy. But RFK Jr. really breaks that down in about two minutes and really gets to the heart of the problem and knows how to fix it. And yes, RFK Jr. does believe in borders. He does believe that we should have borders. He said, you're not a country if you don't have borders. I don't know if I can pull that up here quickly, but he has said that. And so this is what I will be working on, because whether RFK Jr. gets there, whether he wins, whether he doesn't, to document all of this stuff, I've been really enjoying just documenting it, because for so many years we were beat down. This political process doesn't work. Don't even get in. Don't get involved. Don't worry about it. It's not going to change anything. Just the negativity. The negativity is off of the charts. And I get it. I know you get it too. People who take the time to actually watch this get it. I understand it, but I also understand that that's what they want. That these evil powers, they want us to not pay attention to this. They don't want us involved. And we have to think about that, is why they would not, because they understand real people can be a real threat to what they are doing, to what they are trying to do, to what they will continue to do until Jesus Christ comes back. This is what evil does. And we're seeing it everywhere. We're getting hit on so many different fronts. And what are the fronts that we can make a difference on? Everybody's different. Where can we win? Where can we push forward? Where can we do what God calls us to do? And how? And these are the things. So I just can't give up. I just cannot give up and just, say, well, politics are all BS, and I'm just going to not even care about it, not going to pay attention to it. But, I don't expect anybody else to agree with what I'm saying here, or to do anything that I plan on doing too, because the primaries is going to be a very big deal for me to see where do we go from here. Because like I said, if we can get Biden out of the primaries, that's going to be a very big deal. That changes everything. It changes the whole game. It changes all of that. And then we have a really good chance of getting back someone who, when I thought about the Democrat Party, when I became, when when I registered, I guess, as a Democrat, it was different. My view of what a Democrat was, what the Democratic Party was. Remember, they were totally anti-war because Bush was for the wars. He created the wars. He expanded the wars, all that stuff. But for as long as I can remember back, it seems like the Democrats were against the wars. Then we get Barack Obama in, who continues Bush's wars and starts new wars. And then there's all these proxy wars and things that are happening within the Democratic Party. And then we get Trump in. There's no new wars. They're ending wars. Barack Obama talked about it, talked about doing things, but Trump got it done. He really got things done. And so it made a very big difference. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to here a few more clips that I really want to cover. And so let's go through this next one. So that was a good one. There's also another good one here. Like the Hannity one. There's a Biden one. Where is this really, really interesting one here? To it. I may have already passed it. Sorry. Yeah, I think I lost it here. There's just so much, and I haven't put it in any order. This one's a good one. Let's talk about, this is before.
Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and question.
So, I hate these ads. They drive me crazy. Here we go.
Our show tonight. He joins us now. Bobby, thanks so much for coming on. So you are, of course, being dismissed as a vaccine nut, but watching your announcement today, it wasn't about pharma even so much as it was about America's place in the world and what do we do about it. If you wouldn't mind summarizing for our viewers where you think we are and what you think we ought to do.
Well, I gave a long speech, Tucker, and thank you again for having me on.
Of course.
And for that very kind of an introduction. I think that the general theme of my speech was this corrupt merger of state and corporate power, which is turning our country into corporate kleptocracy, into a system of socialism for the rich, and this kind of a cushy socialism for the rich, and this kind of brutal, merciless capitalism for the poor. It keeps us in a state of war. It bails out banks at the same time that last month, the United States government told 30 million people it was cutting their their food stamp checks by 90%. It took 15 million people off of Medicare. The same month, it gave $300 million to the Silicon Valley Bank and tapped up the cost of the Ukraine war to 113 billion. We're sending 113 billion to the Ukraine. The entire budget of EPA is 12 billion. The budget of CDC is 11 billion. We have 57% of American citizens could not put their hands on $1,000 if they have an emergency. A quarter of our citizens are hungry. So we're cutting welfare and food stamps by 90%. And we're bailing out the bankers. We're paying for a war that, we can't afford. And with the way that we do this is by printing money. We've printed 10 centuries of money in the last 14 years. And that caused the inflation, which raises food, which is a tax on the poor. Oh, we've raised food prices for basic foods like chicken, dairy, and milk by 76% in the last 2 years. And now we're cutting people's food stamps and bailing out banks the same month. It doesn't make any sense. And we need to get rid of this kind of corporate control of our government. It comes from our democracy is devolving into kind of a corporate plutocracy.
I would think that what you just said, and I'll just be honest, I agree with most of it. But even if I didn't, I would think, boy, that's a really interesting thing to say. You have a coherent worldview. You've written a lot of books on these topics. You've clearly thought about it. You're not in it for the money. So don't these issues deserve a wide hearing before the public? entering a presidential year? It seems to me that they do.
I would think they would, and particularly the issues of war. And, my son went over and fought in the Ukraine. As I said today, I think people, the major doyens, sort of diplomatic, the most respected diplomatic gurus like Henry Kissinger and Jack Matlock and Larry Wilkinson have all said the Ukraine war is a huge problem for our country because from a geopolitical standpoint, it's driving the Russians close to the Chinese, which is the worst thing for us. But we're there for the right reasons because we have tremendous compassion for the Ukrainian people and the illegal invasion, the brutality, and also their valor and their courage. My own son was serving over there. He joined a special forces unit as a machine gunner. He fought in the Kharkiv offensive. Americans care about the underdog. They care about that kind of suffering. But the question is, why are we in the Ukraine? Because Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, said that we're there to exhaust the Russians. President Biden has said that we're there to deplatform, to depose Vladimir Putin. And if that's why we're there, and we're killing a lot of Ukrainians as pawns in a proxy war between two great powers. Here's one last thing I would say. Nobody talks about this. There's 14,000 Ukrainian civilians who have died, but 300,000 troops. The Russians are killing Ukrainians at a 7-to-1 to 8-to-1 ratio. They cannot sustain this. What we're being told about this war is just not true.
No, it's not true. And I would hope, despite the fact you criticize their advertisers, other media outlets would have enough respect for our country and for its voters to give what you said a hearing, because I think it's really important. And we're, again, grateful that you came on our show tonight. You're always welcome. Bobby Kennedy Jr., thank you.
Thank you very much, Tucker.
That was another interesting clip there. And then I'm trying to pull up a news article that I just saw this morning. But before I do that, this is another one. There's so many different good ones with RFK, and it's probably way down here. It's a 1980 interview with Donald Trump. Maybe I'll play that one. I think this would be a good one here.
Trying to scrape up a down payment for a little fixer-upper in your neighborhood? Take a look at my next guest. There's a report around Wall Street that this is what he has in mind. This is Donald Trump, 33 years old. And some people think that he wants to buy the World Trade Center, the 110-story Manhattan skyscraper that anyone can pick up if they've got the coins. Donald Trump, as I say, is just 33 years old. He took his father's rather modest by current standards real estate empire in Brooklyn and expanded it considerably. He now has an apartment for sale in a new Trump building called the Trump Tower going up on 5th Avenue. There it is. You can buy this apartment, one floor of it, one whole floor of that building, that is. $11 million altogether. You bought some prized properties at the bottom of the New York market in the 1970s. Inner cities have been pure gold since that time. Why? Because replacement costs have just gone up so much?
Well, no, not really. I had a great faith in New York. Primarily, our purchases have been in New York. And about 5 years ago, New York was not considered very hot, and cities in general weren't considered too hot. And we purchased the old Commodore Hotel, and we've reconverted that now into about $110 million Grand Hyatt Hotel, which is opening up next week in New York City. And we've made some other purchases that have been fine.
Is that your general advice to people who are interested in real estate investment, though? Look to the inner cities, look to old buildings and doing something with them?
Well, I like the inner cities. I see the inner cities as being sort of a wave of the future now. I think with the problems of fuel and the gasoline shortages and everything else, and the transportation, especially in the major cities such as New York and Los Angeles and Chicago, I see the inner cities as being probably, in terms of a real estate or in a real estate sense, probably the most viable investments.
But it's going to be expensive. Apartments in New York City alone, one bedroom, not very large at all, $650 a month. That's tough for the working class, isn't it?
And that's actually now a very low price. In fact, if you have any of them available, I'd like to.
I know where I can sell 1,000 of them at that price.
Right.
Actually, that is a low
That's
price.
Right. That's really a very low price now. I know of a couple of buildings, for instance, an Olympic Tower, which is on 51st Street and 5th Avenue. Apartments are being rented by the condominium owners for $5,000 and $6,000 a month, and they're 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. So it's when you say $600, even in other sections, it's almost becoming a low price.
What happens to some of the old buildings in the inner cities that are works of art? You were recently the object of a lot of controversy because you ordered destroyed some sculptures on a building that you bought that the Metropolitan Art Museum wanted. Why did you have those destroyed, first of all, and what happens to the look of a city?
Well, what we had is we purchased a site with an old department store on it, the old Bonwit Teller store on Fifth Avenue and 57th Street next to Tiffany, and we had to really take the building down. And there were many people that didn't want us to take it down. They wanted to try and preserve the building. But the building really was not worth, as an art building or an Art Deco building, it really was not worth very much. And we did take it down, and there was somewhat of an outcry, but I think that's generally subsided now, and I think people like what we're doing and like the building that we're putting in its place.
But couldn't you have saved just those sculptures that you had broken?
Well, it would have been very, very dangerous to have saved them. They weighed 2 tons. They were 15 feet high. They were about 2.5 feet thick. And if they would have fallen, they could have fallen the opposite way. If they fall into the building, you don't worry. If they fall out toward Fifth Avenue, people could have been very badly hurt and killed. And to me, it was not worth it. And they've really proven not to be very valuable art structures right now. And we've had appraisals done. In fact, even after the fact, we've had appraisals done, and they've turned out not to be very valuable.
Mr. Trump, what's left in your life? You're 33 years old. You're worth all this money. You say you didn't say that you want to be worth $1 billion.
No, I really don't. I just want to keep busy and keep active and be interested in what I do. And that's all there is to life as far as I'm concerned. I really am not looking to make tremendous amounts of money. I'm looking to enjoy my life. And if that happens to go with it, that's fabulous.
Give me one final bottom line. In 5 years, the price of a hotel room in New York City will go for?
It could be $1,000 a night.
Start saving your money, folks. Just one night, $1,000.
Neurologists are stunned.
Now that's from 1980 there. So that's pretty interesting as well. 1980 and how far back and how things have changed. But I do like how he talks about going this way and going buildings. He's talking about buildings. Buildings could come down or they could go lean out to Fifth Avenue. And of course, that just reminds us all, I'm sure, of 2001. Where's another good one? I mean, there's so many good ones here, but I need to figure out how to stop this autoplay. This autoplay drives me crazy. Let's see if I can do that.
They have a quick trial and they execute the people.
All right. Well, I can't find how to stop the autoplay so it doesn't just jump to the next video. But I'm going to play this one. I think this is a good one here. Let's look at this. This is Forbes. This is 2 weeks ago, May 26, 2013. And I'll give that one a like. This is when Trump learns that not when he learns, but he gives his view on DeSantis running. And again, it's fascinating to me. And maybe it's just me, but that Trump has responded and gone after everyone, just about everyone, on the Republican side. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe on the Democrat side, maybe he has only gone after Biden, but has not mentioned RFK Jr. yet, not once. Maybe that's the media's fault. They haven't asked him about it. But I am so curious to hear Donald Trump's view on RFK Jr. running. It's very interesting. Why? Maybe if he feels if he talks about it, that's gonna hurt RFK Jr.'s chances. I don't know. I just find it very, very fascinating. Anyways, so I'm repeating myself. So I will go ahead and jump over here. There we go. This is about a 2-minute clip.
President 9/11 families are out saying again that they don't want you to host the tournament. What do you say to those?
Which tournament?
The question he's in with.
Great people, great talent, tremendous talent.
Who do you hope is going to win?
There are too many friends out there.
What do you think?
We have a lot of Patrick's playing great. They're all,
What do you think Liv is probably more offensive for forces this year?
I think it's the best courses. It's the best course in the tri-state area. Right?
I got it.
All together. Watch your face. the best course. There's none even in the contest. And I think Bedminster's now, they love Bedminster. Now you get to Europe, you have Turnberg, Aberdeen, and Doonberg. We have, a lot of things coming up. But they're great courses.
What do you think?
No, I think he's a very disloyal person because he was dead. He was looking for jobs, and I endorsed him, and he went up many points. He was 30 points down.
Talking about Ron DeSantis.
He was dead. So I think he's very disloyal, but I don't care. Look, a poll just came out in Iowa. You saw the one that just came out a couple of minutes ago. I'm leading by 30 or 40 points. I don't mind that at all. But no, I think he's very disloyal, but he's got no personality. If you don't have personality, politics is a very hard business. Well, I watched him with Charlie Crist, and he got very badly beaten with Charlie Crist. Adam Putnam beat him. I don't know, but they say he's not a very good debater, but maybe he is. We'll find out. Maybe we'll find out. Because unless it gets close, why would anybody debate?
Mr. President, are you playing all 18 today?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, so that, yeah.
Are you enjoying the game so far?
All right, so that was just not too much there with that little clip. But I like this one here where Ron DeSantis takes aim at President Trump. Let's see what this is.
Clue that in 2020.
After this commercial break here. Let's go for it.
On this, Alex, what's Governor DeSantis's key message to the Republican Party right now?
Well, Diane, he's tried to make this a two-person race on the Republican side, and he's positioned himself as the best possible option for Republicans for beating Joe Biden in 2024. And so, listen, I mean, you've heard leading up to last night, the governor tried to tiptoe around attacking Trump by name, but clearly now is clearly taking the former president on. And I mean, listen, we heard it in John's piece during that press gaggle. He was also saying that the former president, and now attacking me, saying that Cuomo did a better job of handling COVID than Florida did. I can tell you that there are few people that would have rather lived in Florida, in New York, than Florida at that time. He's really standing on his reputation as governor.
So what are you hearing from voters there, Alex? What are they looking for in a candidate?
Well, we hear a lot of folks that are cautiously optimistic about what they're hearing from Ron DeSantis. They're certainly interested in learning more about him and his policies, but they are looking for some sort of alternative to the former president. And there's still a curiosity, knowing that this field is ever expanding, knowing that there are new folks entering this race on a weekly basis at this point. They want to know more. And certainly they're going to have the opportunity, Iowa being that first in the nation caucus state, a lot of these candidates making stops here in the near future. And what's next on the governor's agenda, Alex? Well, he's got a busy day crisscrossing the state here. He's going to be in Sioux City, Council Bluffs, also Cedar Rapids later today. And then obviously when you see we're across the street from a radio station, we're actually expecting former President Trump to come to Des Moines as well to begin a 2-day tour on his part.
All right, ABC's Alex Brochet in Des Moines, Iowa.
So there's another clip that I need to find here, because this next one is this is the one where, let's go back. RFK Jr. talks about borders. So look for RFK Jr., Neil Cavuto. See if I can find that one. Yeah, here it is. Okay, I think I got this. Let's stop the line. Okay, so we go here. Going to look at this one. And it's about the 10:20 mark. Let's go cut to about the 10:20, maybe a little bit before. Give it a little bit. This is a good clip here. He talks about borders.
The machine gunner for a special forces unit, but we went over there being told that this was a humanitarian mission. And now President Biden is saying that we're there because we want regime change in Russia, which is the same thing the neocons did in Iraq with catastrophic results.
So if you became president, Robert, I just want to be clear, you would put a stop to it?
Yeah, I would pressure the parties to enter a ceasefire and then to negotiate a settlement. I mean, our objective over there should be to prevent bloodshed and to prevent suffering and the destruction of the Ukraine. There's 300,000 Ukrainian troops who have already died in this war. And, it's become a proxy war between the United States and Russia. And, the poor Ukraine is caught between those, in that abattoir and is being grounded to dust. And now, if this war continues.
Well, without our help, Robert, the argument goes that there would be more obliteration in Ukraine, that hundreds of thousands of more Ukrainians would die. They would lose their country. What do you say?
Well, except that both the Russians and the at least the Donbass region was willing to settle the whole thing and walk away with the Minsk Accord, which seemed like a very, very reasonable settlement. That the Donbass got autonomy within Ukraine, that NATO withdraws the threat to go into Ukraine, and that the United States remove the Axios missile systems, which are nuclear capable. When the Russians put missiles in Cuba in 1962, when my uncle was president, we were ready to invade. The Russians, I think, have an objection to us putting those kind of missile systems that can deliver 70 miles from their border.
Yeah, I think I got the wrong clip there. It's actually RFK Jr., Fox News, June 2023. See if that pulls it up. So with that one lady, I can't remember her name. Here we go. I think this is the one that I was looking for. That one is about 12.
Before you get to the
so
ball,
this
turn
is
it.
good. So I'm going to cut to this one at about the 10. This is at about the 10-minute mark or so. Let's see what we got here.
People at 75 years old should automatically get it.
Yeah, this is the one. Sorry. Right,
Before I let you go, because people will watch, and I know you've been asked this so many times, you have talked about fentanyl and drug addiction. You have talked about your own health. What would you say to the situation that we have at the border right now with all that fentanyl crossing?
Well, there's more than a fentanyl crisis at the border. It's a humanitarian crisis. And it's the result of policies that have, it's a result of a lot of things, a lot of different conspiracy of different factors. But one of the clear things that we need to do is to protect our borders, to make them impervious. There's no nation in the world that can have open borders. And, as part of being a country, you close your borders and you manage immigration humanely, and you manage it in a way that is going to benefit our country. And we need to do that.
Well, you differ from Biden on that.
Yeah, I mean, I differ from Biden on almost anything. So,
but you are still a Democrat, we know, because you're very much against pipelines. That much I've read. You're on the green. Real quickly, just a word about that.
About what? About the car? I don't like GNG.
So that was a good one there. I really like that one. RFK talking about the borders. You do need borders. You do need borders. And this is a great article from the Epoch Times. If you're looking for somebody to support, to find some real news, some old school journalism, I think this may be the last of a dying breed. But I really find their articles very insightful. This one is titled, RFK Jr. says Fox News didn't run negative vaccine stories to keep big pharma advertisers. Interesting. So let's look at this. This is by Samantha Flom. And I love how they have this too. This is like a new thing where, I know I probably can't show this in here, but this is a great thing where they actually have, it's a 5-minute, so I can read this. So I can just let this lady kind of read all this out too. And you know what? I think I'm going to do that. I think that is exactly what I'm going to do. Let me see if I can go back to the article. or I may actually have to. I wonder if I have to download that. The article is really good, but news. I mean, we're just being hit with so much news, so many different things. It's so hard to keep up with everything, and so I've been trying to just do my best to keep up with as much of these articles, as much of the stuff that I possibly can. And I'm gonna have to sign in here. Oh, I hate signing in. That's okay. And it's cool that they actually let you have a lot of this stuff free. You can download the app and everything, and it's really good stuff, man. So let me see if I can find this. And I was a subscriber to them at one point, and sometimes you just got to make budget cuts here. So let's see, RFK Jr. Let's see what comes up here. They can say the name. I need the name of the article, which is. Let's see if this will work. This will work. It pulls it up. There it is. All right. So I'm going to open this. Darn, I've reached my article limit. That's too bad. Okay, well, then I'll scratch that plan. Then I'll just go ahead and try to read this as best as I can here. So go back, present. Should love live editing, live audio here. And let's see if I can go back there, pull that one up. Okay. Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy said Fox News barred content that reflected negatively on vaccines that appeased the big money advertisers in the pharmaceutical industry. During a June 5th Twitter Space interview with the platform's owner Elon Musk, Kennedy disclosed that he approached former Fox News CEO Roger Ailes in 2016 about doing a story on the mercury content in vaccines, but was shut down. He said that any of the hosts who allowed me on TV to talk about this, that he would be forced to fire them, Kennedy recalled. And he said that 75% of his advertising revenues for the nightly news shows were at that point coming from pharma. And I'm pretty sure that they still are today. According to Kennedy, Ailes was sympathetic to his cause, but he knew that such a story would result in a call from Fox News owner Rupert Murdoch within 10 minutes. This is crazy. So there you go. I don't want to read a lot of this because you know what's going to happen if I do. But if you want to go and read that article, and it's really cool that if you do sign up for free, you can actually listen. It's a 5-minute. I've seen this on a lot of the Epic News articles, is where you can just click on this little tab here, and it'll actually it'll read out the article through audio. So that is also great too for some of you. That may work out in your favor. So that is another great one. Okay, let me stop sharing this. Now I do have on another stream, I have things streaming. I want to cut to a few more here before I sign off, but let me see. Okay, get a couple good ones in line here. I mean, there's so many different things, but I do love the one where RFK Jr. pretty much says that he can beat Trump, he can beat Ron DeSantis. There's another one here. RFK Jr. talks about free and equal elections. I think these two are good. Okay, I'm gonna play one of these two. And I know you can't see this yet, but I'm going to play this. And I'll tell you, there's just so much. It's so hard to keep up with. If you just want to follow, I mean, people just want to follow along, just see what are these candidates doing, right? Because I've been talking to my wife about some of this stuff, and we are, I'm like in the primaries. I'm really thinking of voting for Robert Kennedy. That would mean I would have to change my party status from the Republican to a Democrat, which is not a big deal because we're not Republicans, we're not Democrats. We don't believe in the two-party system. But obviously, in the general election, I will be voting for Donald Trump. I see absolutely no reason not to vote for him. I'm looking forward to voting for him. But in the primary, I am thinking about voting for RFK. So I have to jump ship to the Democratic Party just so I can vote in the primary for RFK to beat Joe Biden. This is similar to what we did. The only reason why I was a registered Republican is because I wanted to vote for Ron Paul. In order to do that, I had to change my voter registration from a Democrat to a Republican just so I could vote for Ron Paul in the primaries. 2008 primaries, if I remember correctly. 2008? I believe it's 2008. And then I believe in the general election, I ended up voting for Cynthia McKinney. That could have been 2012. It's all a big blur now. Those are some of the craziest times there because of what we thought Barack Obama was going to be, what he was going to do, at least what I thought. But I really didn't believe he was going to do anything different by that point. I was checked out of the two-party system by 2008 because the Democrats had the House, I believe they had the Senate, and they didn't do anything to make this country better. So I had kind of given up on the Democrat Party, and when Ron Paul didn't get in, I kind of, it's just beaten down. And here comes this guy named Donald Trump, who I had heard of. Because any wrestling fan, any WrestleMania fan, if you watch WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5, WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5 were held at Trump Plaza. And you will see Donald Trump sitting front row on the hard cam, on the big hard cam, and you see him right there throughout the whole show. Remember, Donald Trump doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and it's, and it really shows in his age now, where he is 76, 78 or something like that. I believe he's 78 maybe, but or he may be 76. But the competency of the guy is really, really good, and that's what I like, and I think that's what a lot of people like. That's why a lot of people like me are going to vote for him. But I am thinking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the primary, so I can cast my vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to defeat Joe Biden. We'll see what happens there. I'm going to play a couple clips here.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Did you know that fewer than half of Americans now vote in our presidential elections? And there's good reason for that. Americans are disillusioned. They feel democracy is no longer serving the American public. They feel the political parties have been captured by billionaire interests, Silicon Valley titans, big data, big telecom, the oil industry, the coal industry, the tobacco industry, big agriculture, and of course, the military-industrial complex. And that America is now being run by those interests to transfer and strip the wealth of the working and middle classes in this country and transfer power to the technocracy and money to the elites. We need to restore American democracy. We need to restore faith in our system. And we need to begin by restoring free and equal elections where every vote counts and where Americans know that every vote will be counted. And we need to have debates that are not orchestrated wrestling matches run by television network hosts who have 80% of their annual salaries coming from pharmaceutical companies and other large corporations who dictate not only the advertising on TV, but the content of what these people say on a day-to-day basis. We need real debates where the full range of issues are permissible and discussed and debated. And that's why I'm asking you to join United We Stand to restore democracy in this country and to begin by restoring free and equal elections.
It's good stuff there.
As
It's
long
really
as
good
this page
stuff.
doesn't say expire.
I think he has a real chance here. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just kind of out there thinking that it is possible for him to win. But this is I want to pull up another good clip here of RFK Jr. at the border talking about this, and I'm sure you've seen a couple of these. This is the lesser known one, I believe. Not too many people may have seen this. Is more part of a local news station. So I'm gonna jump to this one and I'll play this here.
Hopeful Robert Kennedy Jr. visited the U.S.-Mexico border in Arizona for a firsthand look at where thousands of migrants have been crossing each week.
News Nation border correspondent Allie Bradley sat down with Kennedy for an exclusive interview during that visit. Take a listen.
What is your takeaway?
I have a whole kind of confluence of impressions about what I saw. I mean, starting last night, it was like a dystopian nightmare with, all of these desperate people flooding across the wall and in a situation that clearly could have been prevented. And people from all over the world, from Africa, from Uzbekistan, from Senegal, from Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Nepal, Tibet, India, Bangladesh, Peru, Colombia. We saw all of these people and these hundreds of people coming across the wall. And it seems so hopeless. And then meeting all of the people of Yuma, the leadership, this extraordinary leadership in this amazing town, the people who run the hospitals, the people who run the border clinic, the sheriff, and all of these other people at the food banks who are working as hard as they can to accommodate the problem, a problem that was created by the federal government, that local people are being, forced to hold the bag on. We talked to the hospital administrator who spent $23 million last year that is unreimbursed. They're caring for migrants and are giving migrants the same level of care with the same priority that they treat people who are their relatives in the town. So it's this extraordinary, it's kind of the best part of America and the worst part at the same time.
And Robert Kennedy Jr. is already making inroads with some Democratic voters. Recent polling shows 20% of Democrats support him for the nomination. That's compared to 60% for President Biden. So that's significant. He's doing better with the Democratic Party than about, I don't know, how many Republicans are running right now? It's like 8.
I know. I can't keep track.
8 of them.
But he's resonating, and he's been outspoken on a lot of really contentious issues. So it'll be interesting.
He's a bit controversial, but he is clearly an alternative to the President Biden right now.
That's a great way to put it.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find news.
Over time, drug or alcohol.
Here's another good one here.
Question about fentanyl and what you might be able to do about that.
I mean, my history is, I was a drug addict myself for 14 years from beginning right after my dad died when I was 15 years old. And so I've been thinking about sobriety for 40 years. And I see what's happening in this country now, this dramatic expansion of opioid deaths. We now, I think last year, had 106,000 opioid deaths. That's almost twice of the number of kids that were killed in the Vietnam War, in 20-year Vietnam War, but we're killing that many every year. And all of us, I don't think there's a family in this country whose lives have not been touched. You know, my family certainly has. I lost a couple of my brothers. I've lost a niece during the pandemic to opioid overdoses. And and if you go to rural communities like the ones that I spend a lot of time in this country, it's a plague beyond anything that I think any American can ever imagine. And a lot of it, it's interesting because I know you're an expert on addiction, and a lot of people will argue that 10% of any population is going to be addicts, that there's a genetic component to addiction, and that what drug you get addicted to is kind of is cultural. But you're just going to have this group of people that it's always going to be addicts. But I think it's pretty clear also that addiction is, drug addiction for me was kind of a shortcut to spirituality in a weird way, because it comes from a disconnectedness and a hunger and empty space inside of you that you need to fill with God somehow, or some kind of spiritual connection. And instead you reach outside of yourself for some substance or some action that will fix that emptiness inside of you. And I believe that emptiness we feel inside of ourselves is compounded across the population with the alienation people are feeling, the nihilism, the hopelessness. If you talk to young people in this country, in my era, they were the most idealistic people. Today, I find such a high degree of hopelessness and nihilism in young people that we have to start reaching. One of the things I'm going to do, Drew, which is going to be my Peace Corps program, in analogy for my uncle's Peace Corps program, is I'm going to launch a series of healing centers all across our country. As you know, the recovery industry in this country was a very large industry. It may be as big as $42 billion a year. But it's very predatory in many senses. And we need to be able to and it's very expensive, get treatment. And I've gone, when I first got sober, I would take people up to a place called High Watch Farms in Connecticut, which was started by the founders of AA and Bill Wilson and his friends. And then it was handed over to another group because AA was not allowed by its own charter to own anything. But this place I could bring people to. There was no physician on staff, but it was basically barracks that were very pleasant. But they went to meetings and people got treatment, and you could do it for $75 a week. And I brought probably over 100 people up there, and they got sober. And it was about reestablishing people's relationship with community and reparenting people, who were completely lost in areas of their life, and to reestablish their connection with community and some kind of spirituality, not in a religious nature, but to fill that empty hole with connectiveness. Addiction is a disease of isolation, and the recovery is about reestablishing connections to other people and with community by cleaning up the defects of character that stand between you and other people. And so one of my major initiatives is to go to rural areas in this country and build these facilities, partner with 501c3s, with charitable organizations, and build facilities that kids can go to with mental illness. And by the way, addiction is not just to heroin and fentanyl. There's 120 million addicts. There's as many people addicted to SRIs and benzos, which is what?
Right.
Screens.
He's saying screens.
Addicted
I
to
will tell you
screens.
that, the social media, I think, is the root of all evil, because it is driving, I tell you, the disenfranchisement.
That's pretty interesting. And so that's from Dr. Drew. That date was 2 weeks ago, May 25th, 2023. So Kennedy is really making those rounds. He's just getting started. You have to remember, he announced his campaign. He announced that he's running for president on, I think it was April 19th. Yeah, April 19th, 2023. So, I mean, within 1 month, look at all of these things that he's doing, all these places that he's going, visiting the border, just doing everything that you would want from a presidential nominee. Sounds great. Now, maybe I'll just play one or two more clips here before I sign off, but I do want to play the one from an interview that RFK did with Jordan Peterson, and the topic actually turns to gay frogs. That's right. So let me see if I can find that one. Hopefully I have it on this playlist. If not, I'll have to move to another playlist, but it is pretty I don't know. It's pretty funny stuff. I may have it on a different playlist here, it looks like. Okay. It's okay. Yeah, let me go. Let's see. I know I have that video here somewhere. I'm sure I could just type it up. Yeah, oh, there it is. Okay. So let me go back.
The best way to burn fat and get in shape. It's not keto with paleo.
Now this is at about what do I have here? About the 59-minute mark. I'm going to go back there. Maybe 58. I'll go back a little further. It's pretty crazy how it goes.
Set of questions that I want to address. You mentioned at the beginning of our talk your concern that your concern in relationship to the use of fear. And we could say on the vaccine front that the vaccine mandates were pushed forward, especially the lockdown mandates, they were pushed forward with the use of fear, and that was conscious policy. I know in Canada, for example, that even the conservative types who were just as bad on the lockdown front, they polled the public. They made the public afraid first. Then they polled the public to find out what their fears were. Then they produced all sorts of lockdown regulations that were advanced to improve their standing in the polls. Then they told their scientists to justify those with scientific hypotheses post hoc. And so I've been thinking about that. So here's the conclusion.
I think they just dropped.
If there's a crisis that emerges, real or not, but let's say real, and your response to the crisis is that you become a fear-mongering tyrant, then you're the wrong leader for the time. Is that no matter what the crisis is, you are not morally, it is not morally acceptable for you to use fear and compulsion to put your policy platform forward. And so I wanted to talk about that a bit on the climate front. Well, I was actually concerned about talking to you today because I generally don't give my guests a rough time, but we, I think, have a profound difference of opinion in relationship to climate issues. And so one of the things that I've seen as I've traveled around the world is that the climate narrative, the apocalyptic climate narrative, we're destroying the planet and doom is nigh, has demoralized young people to a degree that's almost incomprehensible. I mean, you see it in the rising rates of depression and anxiety that characterize young women, and they're more susceptible to such things. But in men, you see it as this widespread dropping out of educational institutions and marriage and sexual relationships and employment. I think it's 20%, something like that. 20% of work-age men in the United States now haven't had any employment whatsoever in the last year. And so, and I see this particularly paramount in Europe, where the climate apocalypse narrative has not only demoralized people en masse, especially young people, but it's produced a plethora of policies, and Germany is a canonical example, that have been, to put it mildly, counterproductive. So Germany has energy now that's 5 times as expensive as it should be. It's unreliable. They're dependent on the Russians and other totalitarians on the fossil fuel front, and they pollute more than they did before they started this whole green enterprise. And so I know that you're a long-term environmentalist and you're concerned on the climate front, but I've seen the climate apocalypse use fear to induce something approximating the same kind of level of tyranny, as far as I'm concerned, that characterized the vaccine lockdown. So Well, so help me sort that out, because, you know, you put forward a very interesting candidacy, and one of the crucial problems that we're facing at the moment is to sort out the environmental issues. Like, I'm a big admirer of people like Lomborg, for example, Bjorn Lomborg, who's put forward a multidimensional view of the environmental concerns that confront us, not reduced it to carbon excess, and not put forward an apocalyptic nightmare as the most likely scenario. So help me sort that out and understand where you stand.
Yeah, let me just start by with kind of a footnote. You know, I see these huge levels of depression and despair, loneliness in kids, and I don't think that there's a single cause to it. And I think blaming it on, you know, depression about climate is probably oversimplistic. And in fact, I think a lot of the problems we see in kids, and particularly boys, it's probably underappreciated that how much of that is coming from chemical exposures, including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing. That, you know, that these kids are being overwhelmed by a tsunami. I mean, they're swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today, and many of those are endocrine disruptors. There's atrazine throughout our water supply. Atrazine, by the way, if you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there, and 10% of the frogs, the male frogs, will turn into fully viable females able to produce viable eggs. And if it's doing that to frogs, it could. There's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to human beings as well. So, and you know, I'm happy to talk about that later. But I don't think blaming this epidemic of depression and despair on people who are, you know, fanning fears of climate is. I think that's oversimplistic. I think you're right. You put your finger.
All right, so I think that I just wanted to get that clip there, the gay frog clip, but I think then we're going to basically I think I'm gonna stop it right there, and just for this one. But I want to thank everybody for joining me here, and I will be back next time to continue this discussion and to continue have more shows just like this where we talk about RFK Jr., Donald Trump. I want to get more into the similarities and the differences too. So that's what we will be talking about next. God bless you all. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, have a great one.